reasonably wide, shoulder width apart maybe, and let's start by lifting the arms up into the capital Y. And we're just warming up, so lengthening the spine, making sure the feet are quite parallel, and maybe just gently reaching those arms back and noticing. We're not trying to do anything too major just yet, but just noticing what happens in your body. Do you find yourself poking your head forwards? Do you find yourself flaring the ribs? And then let's bring the arms down into a capital E. So really true right angles, either side of the body and in line with your spine. And then let's just bring those elbows together and bring our little fingers together and open up the palms as if we're reading a book. But keep those elbows level with where they were. And then open out again. And bring the elbows together if you can and opening out. Hold the elbows together, thinking of lengthening the spine, basically sending the tailbone down, lifting the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. Hold it there. Hopefully you're going to feel a nice stretch between the shoulder blades at the back. Come back to your capital E and then just draw your elbows, so keep your arms at the same angle if you like, and draw your elbows in towards your side. And what I would like you to hopefully notice now is that awareness of the muscles just under your armpits, the side seam armpit area. So from your capital E, just draw those elbows in. And again, I keep turning to the side because this is quite important. Try not to have your elbows back here. Try and push the elbows forwards. Try and have your wrists nice and straight. So you're not flipping the hands back, you're keeping them straight. And we're going to repeat all of these positions on the floor a little bit later on. Stretching the arms out, as we have been doing the past couple of weeks, thinking about lengthening each hand in opposite direction, pulling the shoulder blades apart in your back. And then from there, again, we're sideways on, sideways in line with that side seam, working on the coronal plane. Remember, 2 meters apart, coronavirus, we're never going to forget that one. So we're here on our side seam, and from there, if you can, keep those arms nice and straight and just pin them back gently. And going back. And I'm not really thinking about squeezing my shoulder blades together. I'm more thinking about, I'm just noticing the nice stretch across the front of my chest here. All the way back. And then the last one, from that side seam, is to drop the elbows in. And this is the hardest one for me. I find this quite difficult. Imagining that you're making 2 capital L's back to back. So 2 L shapes, they're back to back. You're trying to tuck those elbows into your sides. And ideally, your hand, if I hold on to my shoulder, should be there. Not should be there, but some people will be able to get their hand level with their elbow, and I can't do it on both sides at the same time. I can do it if I open up that shoulder a little bit more and twist in my rib cage. But if I'm doing both arms at the same time, hands are slightly forwards, that's absolutely fine. But what I want you to think about again, backs of the arms, triceps, side seam of the armpit. Squeeze those 2 parts together, really squeeze together. So if you're trying to sort of squeeze air out of your rib cage, and it might be quivering a little bit, might not, you might not have much going on there just yet. Okay, great, and relax those arms. So that was the YEWTL, which makes the word YEWTL. So that will be the title of tonight's Pilates class. Doesn't make any sense, I know, but it will hopefully help you to remember the order. So taking the shoulders back and just mobilising the shoulders, and then bringing them forwards, and then popping the hands on the shoulders and circling the elbows, making sure that you allow that rib cage to move around. So just mobilising, getting some blood flow, going in the opposite direction. I'm going to step forwards a moment. Last movement here is just to take some nice, big, relaxed, loose swimming, as I call this. Think about hips, shoulders and ankles all rotating. Think about the spine staying central. And then coming forwards. Same thing, trying not to lean, trying not to sway, try and allow those hips to move. My legs are quite straight, it might look like I'm bending them, but that might also be my wild and crazy leggings today. And then just notice, how does that neck feel? If you feel like just moving the head from side to side, maybe ear to shoulder, maybe drawing a circle with your nose in front of your face in both directions, just loosen it up. If that feels like something you need to do, otherwise don't worry. Good, now the reason I've got my stunning white socks on today is because our next exercise is going to be one leg standing, and we're going to work the feet and the hands. And we're going to make a foot fist. So I'm standing on my weaker leg, and I've got the other leg, the heel is in the floor. And I'm scrunching the toes over. If I turn the leg out sideways, you can see, hopefully. Scrunching the toes over, making a fist, and then I'm going to lift the toes and try and spread them apart as well. So scrunching the toes over, I'm going to leave that leg turned out so that you can see what's going on, and lift the toes. It might be cramp inducing, hopefully not too much, but if it is, just roll it out or do whatever you need to do. The reason we've got the heel on the floor, the knees quite relaxed, is to keep the ankle still. Now once you've set that foot up and you know what you're doing there, do the opposite thing with your hands. So I'm making a scrunch or a foot fist with my foot, and then I'm going to spread fingers and thumbs far apart. And then when I lift the toes and spread the toes, I'm going to make a really strong fist with my hands. So doing the opposite thing, hands and feet. It really is, you need to concentrate. The moment you lose concentration, you'll find you're doing everything at the same time. So with the hands, don't just pay lip service to the hands. Stretch them apart so that you get those white knuckle ride going across the backs of your hands. Really squeeze your hands together like you're trying to work. I'm doing both ends at the same time now. Like you're trying to work on your grip strength, which is a part of what this is all about. Good. Then let's lift that leg up in the air, just a little bit, it doesn't have to be too much. Take a foot fist, keep your foot in the fist and circle from the ankle. And actually I'm going to go slightly at a jaunty angle here, so that you can see that when I'm lifting my foot up, I'm not releasing the toes. Both directions, and then let's move the hands at the wrist, circling, changing direction. You could go all three going in the same direction and changing direction. If you're worried about your balance, just let your toe, the tip of your toe touch the floor, maybe after each circle. So you're just lifting it up a little bit. We're basically making sure that the ankle can move. We did try earlier with one of my clients earlier on today. We tried the hands going one way and then the foot going in the opposite direction. If you can do that, well done. I really can't. We can do hands going symmetrically, but anyway. Staying on that same foot, let's roll this out a little bit. So especially if it did get crampy, this is how you want to roll it out. Dig the ball of the foot into the floor and now roll around. And notice I'm leaning into it, a bit of a Michael Jackson lean going on there. I'm applying some pressure, about 30% through that foot, through the ball of the foot, and then I'm massaging underneath the ball of the foot into the floor. But the main focus here is the end of my leggings, where the leggings meet my socks. That straight line, I'm trying to make that go into as big a circle as I can. And we're adding on, it's all going on today. We're clasping the hands, just relaxing the arms, elbows tucked into your side. And at the same time, we're drawing a figure of 8 with your hands from the wrist. And there'll be one direction, and again it's quite difficult, you'll find yourself doing a figure of 8 probably with the ankle. One direction which is relatively easy, and then try and change the direction of the hands and the foot at the ankle, and I'm leaning away again. I'm standing on one leg. Lean into it a little bit. In fact, that does help to keep that foot circling and not doing a figure of 8. Great. Okay, all on the other side. There's the first rhyme of class. Figure of 8, great. Heel in the floor, scrunching the toes for all your worth. Really feel all those muscles underneath your foot. There's a lot of muscles there. Feel them all switching on and make them work. We're keeping the ankle still, back knees relaxed. This standing leg is fairly relaxed as well. Great, so set the foot up, do the opposite with your hands. Can feel cramp starting to build on this side for some reason. So stretching the fingers and the thumbs far apart, and then really, really grit your teeth a little bit as well. Make those muscles work, wake them up. Good, we're lifting that leg up just slightly. I'm going to stay sideways on and keep my foot quite low, otherwise it blends into the back wall. And then this time, instead of circling the hands, let's do some sea anemones. But it's a bit like a Mexican wave with your fingers. So I'm starting at the little finger and then finishing off with the thumb, sort of ish. The thumb's actually going in and out all the time. I'm going to change the direction on the ankle. I'm going to do my Mexican wave leading with my forefinger. Keeping that fist, that's the most important part. What I see a lot is when those toes lift up, they bend at the toe joint and they spread apart again. Try and keep the fist. It is quite cramp inducing. Good, and then let's finish off pushing into the ball of that foot, roll it around, especially if it was quite crampy. Make sure that you're putting some pressure through there, get that ankle as mobilised as possible. Again, interlacing the hands, trying to do a circle. Maybe we should just do a circle with the hands and a circle with the ankle. Is easier, unless you want a bit more of a challenge. Figure of 8 with the hands. Ankle is circling. For some reason I'm a bit better on this side actually. Until I go to change direction with your figure of 8 and your ankle circle if you can, making sure that you're leaning into it. My toes are all clunking around. Wonderful. Okay, we are going to take some side bends, but it's more of a side stretch than a shortening. So feet just slightly wider than your shoulders, fingertips to temples, and just gently over to the side. Think of lifting this top elbow up to the ceiling as opposed to shortening on the other side. So we're lengthening, but we just happen to be leaning over to the side in order to lengthen up that side. When you've done an equal amount both sides, take your arms up to the ceiling. So this is like our reach is up, but more of a bend from side to side. Hips are staying still. The same thing as I was trying to lift the elbow up, now I'm trying to reach the arm up to the ceiling. Great. And finishing off there. Wonderful. Let's take some stretches for the chest and the shoulders, the upper back. So just coming back to the reason behind this class, the Y, W, T and L are exercises which ideally you should do every day from a chap on the YouTube. And basically it's for your upper back and neck posture. It's trying to prevent our forward head carriage and that lump and that extra curve that we get. And we've all got it a little bit, but sometimes it's a little bit more pronounced. So that's what we're trying to address with these exercises. So, and I also want you to just try and stretch out the thoracic spine. So just going sideways, push your hands forwards, bend your knees, tuck your pelvis under slightly, and push your upper back. And then just bring the arms in and push back. Maybe a nice breath out there and breath in. breath out and breath in. Hold this one forwards this time, and then standing up straight, straighten the legs, bend your arms, lift your arms up. So arms are bent, I'm still hanging on to one hand with the other. And just drop your head down. I'm going to go to this side for a bit of a change. Drop your head down, and the idea is to pin the arms back a little bit if you can, and you should feel quite a nice stretch around the armpits. Again, I'm trying to heighten your awareness of these muscles. Down this armpit, that side seam area. So just there, and then place your hands behind your back. Interlace your fingers. If you can, lock the elbows out, opening up the chest. And then if you can, lift your hands up a little bit, lift your arms up a bit at the back. A very strong stretch across the front of the chest. If that isn't something that's comfortable for you, or you don't want to do it, it hurts your shoulder, place your hands on your bottom, pin the elbows back, and just sit nice and upright. This is quite a nice one to do actually when you're sitting in a chair, taking hold of the back of the chair with your hands, pinning your elbows back, sitting nice and upright. Again, we're opening out across that chest. Good. So now let's take this pushing forwards with your arms, pushing back with your upper back. Let's take it to the corner as opposed to straight forwards. So you're going to push, I'm just going to reach your arms to the corner, and as I go to the left, so I'm going away from the camera, you'll feel a stretch, a stronger stretch on the opposite side that you're stretching forwards, if that makes sense. So I'm pushing to my left corner, but I can feel it on my right side. Come back into the centre and then go the other way, pushing back with the shoulder blades, the upper back, and reaching forwards. It's like you're being pulled in the opposite direction. So your upper back is going back, your rib cage is going back, your arms are reaching forwards. And you have to have this sort of pelvic tuck sense. When you go to the corner, keep your hips and legs quite square to the front. We're just going to do that once on each side. We're going to add it in to your side bends. So just following me. So fingertips to temples. So let's go over to one side. Mirror me if you can. So we're really sideways on, thinking about lifting this elbow up. You're going to bring your elbows towards each other and turn towards that front corner and look down at your floor and bring your elbows in. And then stretch your arms forwards. As you stretch your arms forwards, keep them sort of at shoulder height. Push that upper back in the opposite direction. Then bring your fingertips back to your temples. Turn back sideways and coming up. One more on the other side. Over to the side. So this is a strong stretch sideways. Imagine there's a wall in front of you and a wall behind you. Now we're going to change that slightly because you're rounding over, looking down towards the floor, then stretch away to the corner. Should be a strong old stretch around that back upper quarter, opposite to where you're stretching towards, fingertips to temples, come back sideways and then up to the top. Great job if you manage that one. Hopefully that should feel nice and strong. Let's go into a nice wide stance and find your sumo squat, as I call it. So my feet are as wide as the yoga mat, my toes are out to the corners a little bit, 2 minutes to, 2 minutes past. I'm going to send my bottom back, bend, hinge at the hips. From the front, fingertips are facing in, elbows are out to the side, knees in perfect symmetry with the legs pushing out a little bit, no collapsing in. From the side, which is why I've turned sideways, my back is in its natural curves, all the way through. Shoulders down, away from the ears. From here, so push into your thighs a little bit. I'm taking a little bounce, and I feel strong. I feel secure here. I feel safe, sort of thing. And then from there, I just want you to tuck your pelvis under and isolate. I'm going to tuck this in a moment. You still can't see very well. But so from there, tucking the pelvis under, isolating that lower back, and then releasing and returning back to neutral. Tuck the pelvis under. In order to tuck the pelvis under, I'm sliding sit bones together. If you're not sure, find your sit bones in the middle of your buttocks, draw them towards each other as you lift pelvic floor, then send your tail under and between your legs. And your upper back will change its shape a little bit, but don't go too crazy there. Try and just get as much isolation, and my tummy is really scooped, as much isolation in the pelvis as you can. Then we're going to initiate from the pelvis, and we're going to ripple all the way up to the top of the head. So start by the tucking under. Tuck under as much as you possibly can, and then feel that the curve starts to come up by your bra strap area, the middle of your ribs. Then lift the ribs up, and then allow your head to lower, just so that it continues that lovely curve. Then we're going to stay exactly where we are, with the head especially. You're going to initiate the movement from the pelvis again. Send the pubic bone back between the legs, lower back returns to neutral, the ribs fall forwards a little bit, and the head lifts last. So starting at the tailbone, tuck the pelvis under, keep curling under until you can't go anymore, then find the next part of the spine. Hold it there, release from the lower back, from the sacrum, from the sit bones, and then lift the head last. One more if you can. Tuck the pelvis under. Really switch on all those deep abdominal muscles. I went a little bit fast then. I sort of let my head move too fast. Keep the head still. Our habit is to move both ends at the same time. We're trying to articulate the spine there, and which is a little bit harder. Go one vertebrae by the other. Brilliant. Okay, legs are nice and wide. Again, I'm going to go sideways. We're going to take a forward bend, a hip hinge from here. Squeeze those arms by your side. Keep them really nice and straight. Activate backs of the arms and armpit side seam. That's the new name for this area. The armpit side seam. The ass. Pitching forwards. The weight is forwards on the balls of the feet. I can tap my heels, but what are we doing here? We're stretching the hamstrings. That's the focus of it. So you might not be as flat as I am. That's absolutely fine. You don't really need to go beyond 90 degrees. Just find your own biting point. If you're only here and you're getting a stretch on those hamstrings, perfect. What I like about this position of the arms, pinning the arms, is it keeps the collarbone nice and open. People don't tend to allow their shoulders to collapse forward. So finding that biting point for the hamstrings and then coming up. Feet nice and wide, squeeze those arms in, pitching forwards all the way. Find that hamstring stretch again. Hold it there a moment, breathe, keep the back of the neck nice and long. Then we're going to let the arms hang. We're going to bend the knees, let the head hang, and just straighten the legs, bend the knees, straighten the legs. A couple of times, warming up those hamstrings. Just going to get my notes so that they're closer. And then, keeping the legs straight, let's take the upper body over to one leg. Hang on to that lower leg, take your head towards your knee. So it's a strong stretch on the leg that you've gone towards, at the back of that leg. Breathe nice and deeply. And then relax in the middle, bring your body into the middle, maybe soften your knees. Swap sides, straighten your legs before you move. Hang on to the lower leg, take the head towards the knee. With each breath out, you're trying to lengthen your body along the leg. Notice if you had a tighter side. If it was your first side, go back to it. If it was your second side, stay where you are.
Just stretching a little bit more there. And then let's open up, so hands back down to the floor. Let's take those feet even wider. Toes going to the corners of your yoga mat. If you've got one, if you haven't, imagine you have. And then we're stretching from side to side. We're moving from side to side, stretching every part of the legs here actually. So inside thighs, getting a very strong stretch, hip flexors, ankle outside of the foot. Try and keep your hips at the same height as you swap. Keep the weight on the hands unless you're feeling strong, in which case come up a little bit, come off of the floor. Don't be reliant on your hands on the floor. You might want to go all the way over and sit back a little bit by pulling the toes up. Don't worry if this isn't for you, just stay here, do what you can. Great job. Okay, let's come down to all fours. And I'm just going to bring my mat forwards a little bit. Great, okay. All fours, square box position. I'm going to tuck my t-shirt in again. Tuck it all the way around this time. Okay, so hands are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips. Let's repeat that ripple that we did in our sumo squat position. So the ripple starts at the lower back. So it's a little bit easier, I think, to sort of switch on your sit bone muscles from this position. So slide those sit bones towards each other, lift the pelvic floor, really tuck that pelvis under, really scoop in that tummy. And notice the movement comes up into your middle ribs, your upper back, all the way up. And then the last part is allowing the head to just release. It's not hanging down from my shoulders, it's just lowering so that I continue that curve. Keep the head there. Send the pubic bone back through the legs. Feel the lower back return to neutral. Feel the ribs drop down. And then the shoulders come into line and then the head lifts last. And again, tuck the pelvis under. Scoop as much as you can. When I get to the very top of my upper ribs, sort of the back of my collarbone, it feels like, I can get a little bit more squeeze going on in that pelvic area. Allow the head to lower and then release pelvis. It just feels as if I've got a little bit more control, and that time I was much better with my head that time. So that was starting from the pelvis. Let's do two more starting from the head. It is much more difficult. So we're going to allow that head to lower and then lift the back of the collarbone, if you like. Get the middle of your ribs up as high as you can. That will free up the pelvis to tuck under as much as you can. Lift that pelvic floor, send those sit bones towards each other. Leave the lower body where it is. Lift the head. Collarbone, ribs drop down. Lower back releases, you return to pelvic neutral. One more. Head lowers. And then the head lowers and then you lift. Lift, 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 lift. Lifting that rib cage all the way up. Scooping that tummy. Belly button really tight and pulling everything in. Release the head. Feel the ripple. Starts from the head and those circles, the ripple cascades out towards your pelvis. Brilliant. And then just sitting back and maybe giving your hands a little bit of a movement there. So just draw some sea anemones. Undoing my t-shirt. Okay, a little bit of strength work from all fours. We are going to go from all fours. We're going to straighten one leg and then the other leg into the plank. So straightening out one leg, straightening out the second leg. You're going to draw one knee in and replace to the back to the plank, and then the other side in. 4 of these. So if you haven't already, join in with me. Legs are out nice and straight. Hands underneath the shoulders. You might get your knee to touch your elbow or your arm, but don't worry if not. But what I wouldn't want to see is the back changing. Try and keep your spine nice and neutral. So 4 alternating, bring the knee back in and the other knee. And then we're going to repeat another 4 on the other, leading with the other side. So think about which leg you would always lead with. So I'm going to straighten out my left leg this time. Lead with my left leg. Only 4. Straighten. Keep those shoulders forwards of your fingertips. And draw in with the knee and back in with the other knee. Brilliant. 2 more sets, leading with alternating legs. This time we're just going to twist. So back out into the plank and twist. So the knee goes to the opposite elbow or the opposite arm. Lower body is twisting, upper body is staying fairly still. And I'm squeezing that knee in. It's not a big kick. Bringing the first knee in, second knee, only 4 of them. Have a little twiddle if you need to. Do some sea anemones. Make some fists. Good. And again, last set here. Got one more thing to add on after this. So left leg is leading for me. I'm twisting now and returning. Twisting and returning. So using those abdominals. Drawing in. Woo. Knee, knee and relax. Great. We're adding on a downward dog to this. So just a bit more upper body strength. If this is too much for you, if you don't want to do the knee, drawing the knees in, you could just go from all 4s, curling your toes under. You could just lift your hips, push your chest back through your arms, bring your shoulders over your hands and lower your knees. I would like 8 of those if you could, if you're doing that one. That's the easier version. The harder version is to just add the downward dog in between each knee. So you come out into your plank, in fact go into the plank, lift up into your downward dog, and then when you're ready we're going to lift the hips into downward dog in between each one. 4 plain ones, put the foot down, lift the hips, back into the plank, alternating sides, lift the hips. Good strong plank position. Draw that knee in. 4 of these. When you've done 4, have a little break. Plank, knees in. I'm going to do 1 more. Hips up. And then I'm lowering my knees. Last set with a twist this time. So out into the plank. Lift your hips up if you're doing this version. And then we are lowering and twisting, foot down, back into the plank. Lift the hips up, lower and twist at the same time. Lift those hips up. 2 more to go if you can. Twisting, lift the hips up, lower and twist. Hips up, last one. Shoulders over the hands, lower both knees with control. And I think you've deserved a nice wrist twiddle, some sea anemones. Ooh, getting a little bit hot. Brilliant. We are coming down onto our backs. I'm just going to open my window first. Great. So lying on our backs, maybe take the hands at the backs of the knees, rolling all the way down. Take a moment to settle your spine. Think about your neutral spine. Take my socks off now that I don't need you to see my feet. It just helps with a little bit of pressure here. Great, let's come back to that peeling of the spine. So we're going to do the same thing. It's that reverse peeling. The initiation of the ripple through the spine is from the pelvis. The only difference now is the head isn't going to change because the head is going to stay on the floor. So
Tuck the pelvis under. There's that initiation, send the tailbone between the legs. Push the feet down into the floor. Push every single vertebrae into the floor. Engage those glutes. So this is the first time we've really used the glutes because we're in a different position. Lifting the hips up as high as you can. Pushing down through the feet, sending the knees away over your toes. Really drawing those sit bones together. Trying to open up at the front of the hips. Get that wonderful straight line. Connect your rib cage to your hips. Check that the ribs aren't flaring. There's a rod here from your hips to your ribs at the front. Stay there a moment, maybe take a breath in, and then reverse peel down. Vertebrae by vertebrae. So the first thing that happened there was me softening, not even softening, pushing the rib cage down to push the ribs at the back into the mat. Rolling out from that pelvic tilt back into a nice neutral. Let's do that a couple more times. So tuck the pelvis under. As soon as those hips come off the floor, activate the glutes, send the knees away. Make sure you're nice and open across the collarbone. This time let's take those arms up and over. Leave the arms there. Take a breath in and a breath out as you reverse peel down, leaving the arms there. Imagine you're hanging onto a branch. Really push those ribs in. Use the muscles at the front of the body to push the back of the body into the mat. Leave your arms here a moment, and then we're going to bring them up and over, and you're going to do this, the stroking of the ceiling thing that we've been doing lately. But actually, I want you to think about activating your armpit side seam as you do that. So shoulder blades draw down in your back. You give yourself a little armpit hug by switching on those muscles there. You stroke the heels of your palms across the ceiling and you bring your arms down by your side. And at the same time, those ribs, if they were flaring, will connect and draw down to meet your hips. So we've got ribs, armpit, shoulder blades. That whole, it's like there's a band around your rib cage that's switching on and activating. So let's go again. So let's take it with the breathing this time. Breath in, not going anywhere. Breath out, peel up through the spine. So that articulation should be feeling quite good now that you've got the floor to use as well. Breath in as the arms go up and over. Breath out as you come down, keeping the arms there. Hang on to that branch. Extend your spine away from your fingertips. Hold it here for a breath in. Allow the ribs to flare a little bit, just so that you can then draw them in. And then armpits, shoulder blades, ribs. Stroke the ceiling with the palms of your hands. Connect everything there. Keep that connection, don't let it go. Bring the hands to the back of the head, interlace the fingers. We're going to draw the elbows in, just into your periphery vision, so not too far. Lift your head very slightly off the floor, wiggle your head around, but just your head. Your arms shouldn't be moving around. Now let's take a complete abdominal curl, lifting and lowering. Just let the head brush onto the floor. So we're staying switched on. We're staying switched on those armpits. We're sliding the shoulder blades down in the back. The rib cage is connected to your hips. My lower back is in its natural curves. My tummy isn't changing at all. The gap between my chin and my chest isn't changing. So I'm not just nodding and pulling on the head. My whole upper body is coming up as one unit. Up you come. Good. Last one. Lower the head down. Let those elbows open out. Relax. Let the ribs flare a little bit. Notice for yourself. Keep the hands at the back of the head. Do both arms, do both elbows touch the floor the same amount? Or is one side slightly tighter? My right side, my right bad shoulder is definitely slightly tighter, not a huge amount, but it's not as much on the floor as the other side. So then bring your elbows in again, connect the rib cage down, connect hips to ribs at the front, slide those shoulder blades down. Slide your legs out along the mat. Yeah, and if you've got a yoga mat, make sure that your feet are on the mat as well. So we've connected in that upper body. We're going to lift head and shoulders up. You're going to look across the floor, or you can just look at your toes. So flexing the feet, so it's like we were standing. The tip of my shoulder blades are in contact with the floor, so I'm not too high up, but I am working a little. There's a connection here. Everything is switched on, shall we say. From this flex position, I'm going to point my feet just from the ankle. I'm going to turn my legs out, both legs out from the hip. I'm going to flex my feet from the ankle. I'm going to bring my legs back to parallel from the hip, going again. Pointing the feet, ankle, turn the legs out at the hip. Flex the feet at the ankle, bring the legs back to parallel at the hip. One more. Point the feet, turn out, flex the feet, parallel. Let's reverse the direction from here. Keep the feet flexed. Turn the legs out in the hip socket. Point the feet from the ankle. Bring the legs back to parallel from the hips. Flex the feet from the ankle. Turn out. Point. Parallel. Flex. One more set. Turn out. Parallel. No. Point. Parallel. Flex. I knew that was going to go wrong because I was thinking about the next move. So keeping those feet flexed. Can you just come up a little bit higher? Keep those elbows nice and forwards. Keep the armpit hugging, rib cage connected, shoulder blades drawing down your back. Check that your neck hasn't gone all tight. Keeping the feet flexed and parallel, but then turn the legs out in the hip socket. Here's our next exercise. We're opening, the legs are already open, but open them only as wide as your shoulders or your yoga mat. Squeeze your heels together, keeping the legs turned out and the feet flexed. So your heels are squeezing together, and I'm working quite hard to squeeze the heels together. I'm not just clumping them together. You should not be rucking your mat up or the carpet or whatever you're lying on. Obviously you're not going to ruck the carpet up, but you know what I mean. Squeezing those heels together, activating inside thighs. Same thing now, feet pointed. I haven't changed anything other than my ankle. I've pointed my feet, the ankle position has changed. Legs are still turned out, heels are still touching each other. So knees are facing the opposite sides of the room, starting to feel a little bit fatigued in my abdominal wall. Last set, if you can, focus on that squeeze. I was going a bit fast then. Every time you open your legs, change the feet. So I'm flexing, bringing those heels together, opening, pointing, heels together, open, flex, heels, open, point, heels, open, flex, heels. Can you get a little bit more height? Everything's starting to shake a little bit now. Open, point, heels, so the heels come together each time. Oh, I've lost it now. And enough. Well done. Bend those knees in. Have a little, whatever feels right for you. Great. We are going to lie on our sides with our legs straight. Legs out straight and that underneath arm up nice and straight. And this is a little bit more inside thigh work. So legs beautifully straight, underneath arm, the back of the hand on the floor, the palm up, lengthening away, thinking about not having that underneath side collapse. So at the moment, my underneath side pretty much is all in contact with the floor. And if you, I don't know whether you can see in the monitor, but my top leg is slightly shorter than my underneath leg because I've allowed my pelvis to collapse on this side. So I actually want to lift, push down on the around, again it's this armpit, this side seam in the armpit. I've lifted my ribs up, I've lifted the whole of the side seam up and I've stacked my hip. So I'm pushing down against the floor a little bit. Then lifting the legs up so that they're both level and they're parallel and the feet are pointed. From here, turning the legs out, bringing them back to parallel. Keeping those feet pointed. So the heels stay together, the toes stay in the same position, they don't change. The angle of your foot doesn't change, you stay in that beautiful pointed position. Good. And then we're drawing that top knee in. So my big toe is touching the underneath knee. The underneath leg is up. We're turning both legs out and bringing both legs back to parallel. Both legs out, both legs back to parallel. Both legs out. That underneath leg is the harder one to work. Hips are staying, I can't take my hand away because I'll fall over, but my hips are staying stacked all the way through. Good, staying in turn out. I'm going to tap those toes behind, just touching the floor, slightly lifting that underneath leg up a little bit and then tapping the toe on top. The toe goes behind, I'm lifting up slightly and then tapping on top. So I'm getting a strong old workout on that underneath leg, inside thigh. It's quite a lot going on here. It's quite strong. Brilliant. We're going to finish off legs parallel, lifting up, still working that underneath leg. Let's flex the feet this time and then bring that arm along your side. Lift that waist away, lift those ribs away on the underneath side. If the neck is starting to complain a little bit, just turn your face slightly towards the floor, but try and actually lengthen the head away from the feet. And I've just lifted my ear off of that underneath arm, lengthening everything away. Ooh, and relax, well done. Sitting up, swapping over to the other side. Great, so beautiful straight line. Just allow yourself to find your position and then allow that underneath side, that side seam to relax completely. Don't work too hard. So my legs are straight and again, top leg, I've got my big toe length. My underneath leg is longer by that much because of the position of my hips and that underneath side being completely relaxed. So I want to push down, I want to draw this shoulder down and back a little bit. Push down into that armpit, get this side lifted, stack the hips one on top of the other. It's harder to balance on this side for me. And then I'm lifting both legs up. Keep that top shoulder down as well. And then legs are beautifully parallel. And then I'm turning them out in the hip and back to parallel. Turning them out and parallel. Trying to work the underneath leg as much as the top leg. Keeping those hips absolutely stacked, one on top of the other, keeping that waist lifted. I've actually squished my mat up a little bit where I've drawn down that side. Great, let's bring that top knee forward. So you're going to have your hand there, otherwise you'll fall onto the floor, fall forwards onto the floor. Keep that underneath leg up quite high if you can. Again, turning both legs out. Keep that top foot pointed, keep the toe touching your knee. No curly feet, no resting your heels down. Curly foot is that one. Ooh, no curly feet. Stay really nice and straight. No curly feet on the underneath foot. That's a curly foot on the other. It gives me cramp. Turning out and parallel.
turning out. So those insteps are beautifully straight. Starting to get a little bit necky for me. I'm going to connect my rib cage a bit more strongly underneath. Looking down towards the floor a little bit. Staying turned out. Tap that toe behind. Tiny lift of that underneath leg, tap on top. Tiny lift, tap on top. Lift, tap on top. Keep those hips stacked. So building the endurance in today's class, pelvic floor area, inside thighs, that deep abdominal area, and then also building the endurance in those muscles around the back of the neck. Brilliant. Parallel, straight legs, lifting up my inside thighs, very much worn out now, and placing the hand along, flexing the feet. Imagine you're standing, lifting that waist, lengthening the head away, but also lifting the ear slightly off. And just breathing, and then relax. Great. Okay, we are finishing off lying on our tummies, repeating the YEWTL, the YEWTL, which is the theme of the class. So lying on your tummies. We're going to create the Y with the top corner of our mats. We're going to have the feet and the legs hip width apart, so not too far apart. And today curl your toes under so that your knees are resting on the floor. Stretch your arms forwards. So I'm just going, my Y is sort of formed by the top corner of the top corners of my yoga mat. Drop your head down and have the tip of your nose touching the floor. So with those toes curled under, from there, straighten your legs. And hopefully when you straighten your legs, you're going to feel like you want to push your pubic bone into the mat. Please do that. Connect your pubic bone to the mat, push the backs of the knees up towards the ceiling, and keep your feet equally weighted on little toe side and big toe side. So what I mean by that is don't let the ankles roll out towards your little toes. Stay nice and strong. It's as if you were standing. Lift the back of the head and neck up very slightly so that you're now in line with the rest of your spine. And then from here we're going to lift that whole arm off of the floor. And this is really quite strong. We're looking to build the stamina here. Stretch the fingertips away, but at the same time slide those shoulders down in your back. Put the shoulder blades in the back pocket of your jeans. Push the backs of the knees up towards the ceiling. Push the pubic bone into the floor. And then let's bend the elbows. Come into your capital E. Turn your head, which is quite a good exercise in itself. Check that your wrists are nice and flat. Check that your hand, your forearm and your elbows are all on the same level with each other. And then lower them to the floor. Bring your head back to looking down at the mat. But keep that head slightly lifted. And then we're going to lift and lower in that capital E position. What your body will want to do is lead with the elbows. Then lift the hands, put the hands down first, and then drop the elbows. Try not to let that happen. So we're lifting, hovering off the floor. Only go as far as you can comfortably. Keeping those arms in that shape. That's the most important part. So then we're holding the arms off, not too high. Now we're coming into our W. Draw the elbows into your sides. If you can, try and tip your elbows forwards down towards the floor. This is really quite strong. It is for me anyway. Keep the wrists nice and straight. Hands are flat. You might want to put the whole arms on the floor. Keep them hovering off if you can, holding it there. So I'm really very aware now of the muscles around my shoulder blades. I'm aware of my shins actually. A little bit uncomfortable when the legs push those pubic bones into the mat. And then let's extend out into the capital T. Make sure your hands are level with your shoulders. Low, and they're hovering off the floor for the moment because they're level with the rest of your spine. Lower to touch your fingertips to the floor, keep those wrists nice and straight, and then lift up as high as you can. And my arms are shaking now. Lifting up as high as you can. Again, it's not a sense of squeezing the shoulder blades together at all. My upper body, my spine, head and shoulders not moving, just the arms. And the reason everything's quivering a little bit is because I'm relying on the exact muscles that we want to work, the muscles around the shoulder blades, between the shoulder blades, to lift and lower that long lever of your arm. It's quite tough. Good. The last one. Finish with your arms parallel to the floor, so lower them a little bit. Tuck those elbows in to try and create those capital L's back to back. Now everything is really shaking for me, but I'm focusing on that connection. Armpit side seam, triceps. Trying to get my elbows into my sides. Just lower your upper body a little bit. I realised I was getting up a little bit higher, getting a bit tense in my lower back. Push the pubic bone into the mat. Straighten out the legs. Breathe. Building the endurance in these muscles, try and open up the collarbone a little bit, and have a little relax. Just place your hands one on top of the other, turn your head to the side, rest your head, let your legs relax a little bit. I feel like I want to roll those shins out. And then turn your head all the way to the other side. Try and let your head be heavy, release any tension in your shoulders. Take some nice deep breaths. Great, and then we're coming up onto all fours. So whenever I do that sort of tough scapular stability work, I always want to just have a bit of a wiggle about. So maybe some spine circles, some vertical spine circles. Curling the toes under, coming back into our downward dog stretch that we did earlier. For me, I always want to walk through my feet, stretching through those calves, bending one knee, bending the other knee. You might feel that you want your knees nice and wide, hips back on your heels. You might want to be here. This is quite nice for this work again. A big sway from side to side, and I'm turning my head. Maybe stretching underneath and through for like a threading the needle position, and then rolling over that shoulder, swapping sides. Relax the head, roll over the shoulder. Whatever you do, do it with commitment. Go right to the very edges. Try and go a little bit beyond where you might feel that you would normally stop. You're nice and warm, go for it a little bit more. Breathe, relax, explore. And thank you so much for joining me on Live at 5, and I hope to see you again.